Should we wait for Susan for this, or should we?
Yeah, we can skip that.
Okay, come back to it.
All right, today is March 24th. It's a little after 5 o'clock. This is the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee. Do roll call real quick. I'm here. Councilmember Campoli.
Yeah, Mosher Campoli.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll get there.
Councilmember Walsh Russo.
Here?
And she'll tell you I used to do that for her too. It took me a couple times. Acceptance of our minutes for February. Was there any changes anybody needed? No?
Oh, yes, I do have something.
Yes.
For the section about our discussion for the next meeting on bikes. Yes. I just wanted to include that we had mentioned that for the April meeting, we're going to be discussing bike lanes. It says we would.
I think it just said a future meeting.
Yeah.
It just said future meeting.
Yeah, so I just want to put in that we specifically mentioned we were going to do work prior and research to talk about bike lanes in the next.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to take this minute to open this up to the public, see if there's any public comment on anything.
Sorry, Chair, can we go back?
Yes.
During which section for the bike lanes? February 2nd. Hold on a second, I can't get it right now.
Oh, in the February?
Right.
Yeah, let's look.
I think
Nothing.
that's the,
This is the full. Oh, wait, here.
that's for the council, that's for the council meeting.
Oh my goodness, you're right. I'm doing the wrong thing. No, that one's the one.
And you
That's
guys
right,
don't have to worry
That
about
is
the
the one,
public
yeah.
comment because you're specifically written in here, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's the January ones, sorry.
You know what?
Let me,
It's the wrong minutes. Okay, don't worry. It's really,
sorry,
We can-
I'm the one at the wrong ones, and I'm
We can
not
just
helping.
postpone them and we can clear them on the next meeting. It's not a big deal.
I just wanted it on the public record that we
Yeah.
did talk about bike lanes,
Yeah.
because there's been some question from the public about that, so.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was,
It's the January meeting.
January.
oh, it was, the
Okay.
previous minutes.
All right.
Okay.
So those are good to go then, these?
I think so.
Okay. Well, look good to me. All right. So we're going to open this up to the public for public comment. Kind of like we do in the council. Give a couple minutes to state your. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a back and forth, but we're going to listen. So is there anybody that'd like to address? Please give your name and where you live, please.
To the best of my knowledge, East Street's building is the only large building on a public lot. Correct me if I'm wrong. Back and forth. So,
What's your name? Name?
I'm sorry.
Name. You have to state your name, please.
Maureen Daly.
Okay, thank you.
I wrote an email to the city letting them know there was ice in the lot. Lots of ice. Between the cars, on the first row of cars, near the building. The back of the lot always got cleaned whenever the snow and stuff got plowed, salted and everything else. So, I don't know what happened. The back of the lot got cleaned that day with the scooper machines. The front did not. You could have gone between, and the space meant for 5 cars. I don't know what time certain people came to the lot. 6 o'clock is, they had it done before 6 a.m. So, anytime after that, we could put cars in the lot, in that space, so that it looked like there were 20 cars in the lot. But there weren't. There were 5 or 6. I wanna know what's gonna happen next year, because it's different than a regular lot. People live there, people put snow there, the landlord puts snow there. We put snow there off the top of our cars. What are we supposed to do with it?
I just said we're not gonna have back and forth, so if you're waiting for an answer, it ain't gonna come tonight.
Yeah, I know.
No. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address us?
Yes, my name is Haley Tazek. I live on 9 Morgan Avenue in the city of Leavenworth. I'm here to present a petition that my husband and I have put together to change noise ordinance, specifically to the emptying of any refuse container or dumpster. As a city resident, over the past couple of years, we have had a very big disruption of sleep from our neighbors' garbage. We have called several times to reach out to them ourselves to try to handle the issue. And at first, there was some significant changes. Then in the summer, it was back a little bit more, and it has just crept up earlier and earlier. And we've called most recently, and the company was very rude to me. And so I took it into my own hands and went around just our local neighborhood and have about 2 full sheets of signatures with about a handful more online. In the city's noise ordinance, it states that it intends to prohibit excessive and unreasonable noise from all sources to preserve, protect, and promote health, safety, and welfare, and the peace, quiet, comfort, and repose of persons within the city. The whole radius of our one neighbor's garbage being out of everyone else's is very disruptive to our sleep. It's not normal hours. The city doesn't allow construction to begin at 7 a.m. and we don't see why garbage removal is no different. The trucks are, high decibel, they're repetitive in nature, overall just really disruptive. And so we're here to propose that it gets pushed back to 7 a.m. I know in the past it was that and it was changed. I don't know why. I wasn't living here when that happened. So I'm here to present this.
Okay.
And then, if you want me to hand it to you,
Sure.
wasn't able to print at home, so I just having a little trouble downloading, but I can scan this.
Greg, do we know where it got changed?
I don't have to
I
look back. I don't.
believe it was 2017 or 2018 around that time.
2018.
Does your petition have a description of the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a potential solution you're proposing, or?
Actually, it's probably on.
I mean, my solution is to just have it
Gary, I don't know.
pushed back to 7 a.m., which
To
is,
resort to the previous, okay,
Yeah.
revert to that.
So like no pickup till 7 a.m. or after.
And what time is it now currently?
it's currently 5 a.m.
Okay.
For Christ's sake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is that something that codes and police department take a look at?
Yeah.
See if we have to modify that anyway, or if it can be enforced as it is, or, I mean, I got 5 a.m. is kind of early in the morning.
Yeah, we can look into the history of that, discuss it some more in the next meeting if you'd like. It might be
Maybe
something
there's
that goes
ways
to
why
legislature
it
from
got
here.
changed, or
Right.
Yeah, I think
we changed the code.
Jared has some.
I'd be curious to
Yeah.
know.
So it was changed with an ordinance in 2016. I'm not sure what the actual effective date of the proposed change was, but the ordinance
myself, anyone on this, the city clerk or city administrator, and ask whereabouts we stand, and we'll get back to you, okay? But it probably won't be changed overnight, and, you know, we'll have to look and, see what's going on, and, so. I have to rely on my coach department on a lot of stuff, so, okay? Anybody else that wishes to? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll get into the agenda. So, you want a time crunch? Or you want a time crunch?
Quarter to 6.
All right, I'll be nice, let's try to get the mayor out of here.
The first time I've
So, last council meeting, we started talking about it's not Renaissance program.
Downtown support, right?
Downtown,
Programming?
and we did the program and we passed the brain farts today. We passed the amendment, whatever. we
The
call it.
funding that is needed for the
So-
support downtown, yep.
And part of that was, there's wanted to be a discussion on changing the funding and how it would go and stuff like that. Resolution, that's the word I was looking for. So, I said we would take a look at it here. I know that the last time when we tried to put more funding and stuff over, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't have a good way of actually having being able to account for that 5,000 that we put towards the holiday programming and stuff. And I know that, Councilmember Lepard, she wanted us to maybe look at taking some out of marketing to beef that up a little bit more. And as I got really looking at the resolution and stuff, the only way I think that you could even change any part of that, because it's passed the way it is we'd have to amend that. I think if we were going to look at trying to put a little bit more money into our holiday thing, I think we should try to ask our city administrator and staff if we could come up with a little bit more money to push that way. But we gotta have some type of metrics and accountability on funding that. So, is there anything else?
Yeah, so you're 100% right. We spent $5,000 last year on holiday programming. We didn't have any accountability for what monies were spent on, but you're looking at the tree lighting and the festivities that the company that we had the parade, which is actually funded by somebody else, in front of the Daily Star this year. And years past,
future, and that's one of the reasons why I said we look at it now. As you know, we going into the next budget, not so many months, which is hard to believe already, but what we can do to come up to a long-range plan, so, you know, I think city staff is, you know, probably got a better handle on it, but they can get us where we need to get. But also, I watched something the other day about a town that had a parade, and it was very disheartening because only about 20 people came out on this big thing for this parade. And I think you gotta have marketing, I think you gotta get people down there, you gotta get people, if you can show that you're a vibrant community, this is coming from the guy that lost the vote on Tuesday, but if you show that you got a vibrant community, especially in downtown and stuff, and you can get people there, it shows for the overall community. It's not just about downtown businesses, it's not just about, it's actually the whole community wins. And that's, I think, what we need to, because in order to get people to move here, wanna be here, wanna stay here, we have to start moving in the direction of giving people what they want to be here. So, the other part of this too is we had a little, both of you were there at Hardwick, their institute put together a little meet and greet with students. And speaking with the students, and I had a town acting supervisor standing next to me when they brought up, there's nothing they can do. So we asked the hard question, what do you want to see? They really couldn't answer that question. They thought the students couldn't really answer because they said, well, one might want, the other one won't, this one won't, not this one won't, this. And then what could our economy handle? Because jokingly we threw out, oh, you know, like a Dave & Buster's, well, you gotta guarantee so much revenue for them to do this and to get them here. But what could stuff that we could start working at? One thing that was kind of interesting that we found out was two of the students didn't even know Interstate even existed on the south side. And because they didn't realize, you know, because the bus stops at a certain point.
Yeah, it was
They love our bus service, by the way, so kudos to Dave and his crew for OPT. So it was asked about, can we extend the bus service out to Interstate? Which I found out in texting Dave that they could ask the driver, which I never knew that. So, so there's some stuff like that, I think education-wise, and if we could market some of that stuff and we could get that out there. Again, even though it's a business outside the city, it still helps us with our riderships and stuff like that. I mean, so I think there's a lot of potential in this, and I think marketing goes right along with it. I mean, you got a healthy city, you got a healthy town, you know, the county's gonna come with it, because this is where the bulk of your populations are. So I think that's how we really have to start looking at things, so.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think creating those kinds of experiences and connections, even if they're outside the city, you know, it's still benefiting everybody in multiple ways. And I also asked some students what it was that they would like to see downtown, you know, what kind of fun things they would like to do. I did hear, you know, they'd like to do games, arcade, that kind of thing. You know, somebody jokingly said, you know, they'd love a beach because that's what they miss, you know. But, you know, to me that just says it's, you know, it's that people are looking for those third spaces that they're being called now, like places that aren't home, aren't work or school, but places where they can go and hang out and relax together, be together, you know, and socialize in an informal way with each other.
It was a great hour to spend when we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them that talk to me, they're like, yeah, it's nice to go to a bar once in a while, but it's not really the life we're looking
Right.
for. We're looking more for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
There is all this data that this particular generation is just not drinking
yep.
Yeah.
in comparison to others, previous generations. Maybe we're seeing that.
Our generation.
But yeah, definitely some of those activity-based things, you know, those third space, you know, things, I think that's, you know, really what I heard, you know, was what people were looking for there.
So back to like the original reason why I brought some of this back down here to us was to look at the funding for this one. Again, Carrie might have to correct me if I'm wrong, because it was a resolution. I think the only way we could do anything is if we amend it, because we gave $60,000 to the way it was presented to us. So I don't think there's really much we're gonna do there. I think if somebody on the council wants to take that on and try to get the votes, that's up to them, but I think right now, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
If, as we get going in the next couple of months, if we think that maybe we can market more towards our holiday, we might have to put some money over there. I think we can ask Greg and Jenny to see, in the mayor, to see where we might be able to come up with a little bit of extra funding to go that way. I think the holiday seasons is, you know, a good idea. But that's how I feel, but how do you guys feel?
Yeah, I'm feeling that way too, because like I've been studying this breakdown here and thinking about like the amount of time, right, that's involved in each and what's been allocated to each of these things, okay? The holiday calendar, I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a series of several days, right? So it's a handful of days. And that's $5,000. And then what we're talking about for the summer is 14 weeks overall or something, right, Mark? And that's $35,000. And to me, it feels like that marketing piece is super, super important because I think that that's going to be part of what helps launches the success of this. So I think it's really important to preserve that fund. So looking at the breakdown of it, you know, again, I agree. I think that it, you know, it makes sense where it lands right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur to an extent. I would also put forward that it sounds like, I mean, you're making a really good case, I think, for the creation of a public information officer position.
We always make the cases for them, and then we always pull it back out.
I'm just saying, I mean,
Yep.
there's instances that come up again and again where having a full-time person to strategize and to really promote the city in terms of what it's doing would be invaluable. So, just putting that out there. I just want a quick question. So the 5,000, Mayor, is for the holiday programming and the production, and the 20,000 is for 9 months of marketing, and that would include the holiday?
That's correct.
Okay, so Councilmember Leparshu is asking to create more programming funding, is that what the request was?
She wanna take money, I believe, the way I understood it, she wanna take money away from marketing to put over into like more into the holiday portion.
Programming of it,
Yes.
because it's already marketing for it,
Yeah.
it sounds like, okay. I'm gonna say, I'm in agreement that I think, you know, the way the current program stands, seems more than sufficient, it seems quite clear. The objectives seem, you know, quite focused. I would like to see an update, you know, eventually about how it's going.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll do that to us.
Yeah.
You got it there.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And like I said, the other thing was about doing the future, about starting to maybe look at this, so that next year, year after that, we got a plan.
Yeah.
So that when we put
Yeah.
the budget together, it's already built in there, then we don't have to keep doing the dance back and forth. This is the direction we need to do this, we need to,
So,
you know, try to help out Greg and Jay as they try to put that budget together.
yeah. So maybe like
And the rest of our
towards
staff.
the end of the summer, you know, we can start looking at how do we feel like it's gone and what would we maybe,
Yeah.
you know, consider for the future, you know, because that would give us that time, you know, to prepare for the budget
Cause
season.
I know we talked about putting some extra money over to the parks for their music,
Right.
for their, for the stuff that they do, the movies and stuff like that, you know. And that's something that the community's asked for too, is more
Yes,
city support into that kind of stuff, so,
they want more activities and
So-
support for events, for
Yep.
sure. So,
okay. Any questions, Greg? Is that good?
Yeah, so I'm gathering we should bring this back in, later in the summer, or continues,
yeah.
is that the idea then?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mayor, now that he's here.
Go ahead.
Quick question about the marketing campaign. Is there gonna be an RFP put out to, okay. I think you had said that in our council discussion, I just wanted to go back to it.
I think, the mayor's gonna give us some updates as they go along.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
Okay.
In fact, I think this seems like the most connective commission to do that with, and then I can bring it forward to council if you guys decide. But I think let's report to you.
Okay,
Yeah, so we'll get periodic, updates from the mayor.
yeah. So the next step is, in the timeline, is an RFP for the marketing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep plugging along a little bit after summer, Greg, we'll bring it back up to look at for the next year.
Yeah, I'll just keep it tentatively on the agenda every month,
Yep.
unless we don't have an update, we can take it off.
Okay.
Mayor?
Sounds good to me. All right, everybody's favorite topic, dare management.
I'm happy for that. I thought you guys wanted to talk about it, and Brett told me you guys wanted to talk about it.
So I just concerned about what they see as sort of a plethora of neighbors feeding deer. And so, and they I think, really succinctly brought up all the problems with that in terms of both the deer and the community. And so I wanted to pose to the deer management task force the possibility of creating some kind of public campaign around raising awareness for not feeding deer, and that feeding deer has all these problems and brings with it, some real concerns. So I just wanted to pose that to the committee, or to the task force, I think is what you were, and to just find out if that's a possibility in terms of what your overall strategy may be moving forward.
I did, Sandra actually prepared just a list of items, like educational things that the committee has done so far, so we can pass that out, just so sort of be aware. Most of it is articles in the paper, some written by task force members, but most of them probably written by but it's kind of amazing how much it's been in the paper. And then just community garden. Celia Reed has started a pollinator garden, and so there's some education there. But
She's gonna talk about deer resistant planting.
but about feeding deer, I mean, we don't have like an organized strategy right now, but we certainly would be open to suggestions.
I do have one thing to add to that, but I forgot to put on that with Susan. I made up a poster about feeding deer and why you should not feed deer. And, talked to Lou Lansing, she had it posted in Wilbur Park at the pavilions. I only see it there once now, and I only made one copy, sorry, maybe you can pass it back around. But, we were thinking maybe we could put those up in more places. Right now, there's just pieces of paper that are laminated. But I think they hold up pretty well. I haven't been there in a couple of months, but
One question is that it's illegal. We would love to have people not feed the deer for the sake of the deer. But the fact that it's illegal and how that process of having someone higher up, police or DEC going to that person and saying, if this has been reported, you do it, if you don't stop, you're gonna get this amount of money. But I'm not sure how much the city police can be involved in that, or if it's just DEC.
And I spoke with the DEC maybe a week and a half ago. She said that the environmental conservation officers, part of their job is to, follow up on complaints. So I think there are a lot of neighbors that don't like the feeling of like turning in a neighbor and like, tattletailing on them or something.
Yeah.
But, I think that the first time it happens, they're not gonna give them a ticket. They're just gonna talk to them. The second time it happens, I don't know if they'll give them a ticket.
what I read was they'll give one warning and then they'll get frustrated about
So
it.
I think that the right thing to do is actually to make a complaint to the officers, the environmental, the DEC officers, and have them go do the footwork and meet with the person and, educate them. And, that's what I suggest.
Can it be reported to someone? If someone wants to report it, is there some kind of mechanism that can be set
Well,
up so that
yeah.
they don't have to, they can say, this is the property that is happening,
Yeah.
but they don't have to, maybe they don't have to give their name or,
Right. Well, so my question is really sort of twofold. One is, what kind of reporting, which is what you're speaking to, do residents have available to them if they do see sort of this kind of dynamic, which I think is actually probably more common than people want to admit. And And then the other is, what can the city possibly do in conjunction with the task force to maybe spread a public awareness campaign around how this is a bad activity? I think there isn't necessarily that assumption that it's going to be hugely detrimental. It's more, people probably see it case by case, like, oh, there's nice deer, they're friendly, you know, they hang out, you know, I give them, they look hungry or whatever the thinking is. So I guess it's really twofold. One, what could we do for reporting? Is there, you know, are there more sticks that people could maybe respond to that would deter their feeding? And then what could we do maybe to spread a campaign and awareness through that campaign of this is really something that hurts the deer as well as the broader community, human community.
I guess, I mean, one idea is that I don't know that how publicly available the names and phone numbers of the officers are, so we could potentially post it on our website under
Right.
the management section of the website. So if, you know, we can easily point to that if somebody wants to do that.
Yep.
We have had, you know, social media posts from time to time.
Yeah.
Nothing scheduled like regularly, but Carrie's done a really great job like coming up with like graphics and stuff on some of those things for like Facebook. I don't know how effective that is, like,
Yeah.
I don't have a marketing background, so this is definitely like a weakness for me as far as how to like organize a campaign.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm open to suggestions. Unfortunately, there's a group of volunteers who are willing and able to help out in whatever way. I think we just need direction.
Mhm.
So, open to suggestions.
I got one. We'll have the mayor pointing down saying, stop feeding the deer.
Well, honestly,
Oh, Chris, go ahead. Sorry. Chris?
One thing I just wanted to mention was that there is a 1-800 number, tip DEC hotline. If you go on the DEC website, you can search for that. You can call on your neighbor if you want to.
Go ahead.
Can we post more of these signs in different parts of town other than just the park? I mean, I know it's a little difficult, you can't put it on private property, obviously, but
maybe Muller Plaza and that, something like that might get noticed.
I don't know. I have mixed things about posting things, cause after a while I look really ratty and it, you know, and if you don't change it out, it loses its effect of what you're trying to get to, so.
Would Otsego Media do a video? I'm sure they'd come up with something really clever with deer.
You're looking at me.
Yeah.
You know,
You got the hook with Otsego Media.
yeah, between one thing and another, I'm sure that, a nice 15 or 20 second, a couple of them probably could be generated and rotated. It's, cause it's an educational piece about, you know, you're hurting the deer because
Right.
their systems aren't designed for the food that you're feeding them at the moment. So they're getting empty calories, you're starving the deer, making you feel better. And yes, and by the way, it's illegal.
Right.
So I think there are two tacks to take with that. Probably a couple of things could be generated that might be meme worthy and picked up by other media as well. Let's just say it's a story.
Well, I just gave her the headline. The mayor's sitting there saying, stop feeding the deer.
Yeah, the mayor's got enough. Let's not give anybody another reason to be mad at the mayor. But I think that, so I can have a conversation around trying to generate something and like, Susan, I'll connect with you to let you know.
Okay, is that like a big ask for them? It is.
I'm sorry.
Is it a big ask to ask them to do something like that?
You know, there are a couple of us with some media skills between one thing and another. I think we could probably get something done.
Okay, cause, you know, maybe a video is a little bit helpful.
15-second meme-worthy, you know, piece that gets out there and gets shared. You
Yeah.
guys will find it, you'll share it. I think we can make it happen.
So what I was going to mention is that the residents who contacted me really didn't know kind of what path to take. They had seen this, it was very upsetting for them. caboodle. And so I think just also letting people know not only is it illegal, but here's what, if you do see this happening, here's where you can contact, you know, getting the DEC, if it's DEC, then getting the DEC info out there, just so people know what to do. They didn't know what to do. So I said, well, you want to just draft me a letter and let me know the conditions under which, you know, you're seeing this and what's happening and how it's, you know, really not great for your neighborhood. And then I can, you know, use these channels at City Hall. So, but beyond that, you know, what more could we give people? So just so that they can know, here's where I go for this problem.
What about, no, go ahead. No, so I mean, we could get that out to council members and then when you guys get calls, then you could give it out.
Yeah, or we can also broadcast on our social media too, so, yeah.
I had a thought too, it might be too late for this year, but I know, I'm working at the high school that they do, one of the English teachers there does some, she makes her classes do like some sort of problem, like I know one group, is going to do like a park cleanup, but there's another group that's like connecting with one of the elementary schools, so it just popped in my head that like, okay, not just the adults need the education, but it could start in the schools too, and teaching the younger kids, and so I know, you know, maybe high schoolers going in and teaching some of the elementary kids about that, and maybe it will reach back home some way, like, hey, my parent does that, or I wanted to do this here somehow, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Kids are really good at telling their
The parents
parents
what to
how
do.
to do it.
Yes.
And that they're wrong.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, along with you guys, you could probably tap into the schools.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and if I remember, I can mention it to the English teacher, I know they had to start like proposals a while back for their spring project, so it might be too late for, you know, but just something to keep in mind too, or like, 'cause I don't think even kids know.
Right.
Right. The most powerful article I saw when I was researching this was, I think it was in Connecticut, a town in Connecticut, where there were all of a sudden 12 dead deer. They autopsied 4 of them, and they had gotten into a pile of corn that somebody left out. And it's an excruciating death. And, you know, they don't always die, but all of those deer died because somebody fed the deer.
Did you,
Yeah.
is that everything?
I mean, I've had my questions answered, just to kind of, it was more just a dialogue also
No, that's
with
good.
the task force, yeah.
Just one other thing too, in the education component that's in my mind, because of the negative, feedback from SUNY this past year with the DMAP program. There's this, I think, an unreasonable fear of hunting, just generally. I've done some research, you should research how unsafe hunting is. It's not unsafe, it's probably one of the safest sports in New York. So just, if people are concerned about safety, maybe, you know, ask them to Google like hunting accidents in New York. And it's really amazing how safe it is.
Or publicize the number of incidents in hunting per 100,000 people and the number of incidents in golf per 100,000. It's astounding how bad golf is.
Well, it's the same as like air travel. It's the safest form of travel, but almost if you ask 90% of the people you ask are afraid to fly. So, because they're afraid of the accident. So, all right. You guys got anything else?
No, so we've got, I think we have some ideas, right? And so we'll follow up on those and hopefully go in that little bit more of an organized educational direction.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Always good to see you guys.
Nice seeing you too.
We always have a smile on your face. It's always nice to see you.
Sure for that.
Actually, do the website.
Oneonta Creek Trails.
This is on the agenda, I think you guys wanted to have this on the agenda to continue talking about, kinda how we might, over time, develop our trail networks.
Okay. Can we postpone this one to the next one?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
I forgot, so.
I mean, should we ask, if we are moving into April, should we ask Mike and his colleague whose name,
Bill?
Bill?
Bill.
Why not?
Should we ask them again?
Yeah, well, I'll push it to the next one, but I'm wondering, cause I know that there's renewed interest with, some other parties, with the trail too. I wanna see if they get together first, so that make sure they get together so when they come back with us, we have, more update to see how far and the connections go, because I know that the one railroad reached out to Pine Lake, so hopefully we can keep it going.
Was there really
So, yeah.
anything else that we need to do at this time anyways, or just continue to kind of keep an eye on it then?
I didn't hear what you said.
Was there anything else that the committee, that we needed to do with this?
We just wanted to
Or
keep it
just
up there, to keep the interest, so we know, so it doesn't die, and then all of a sudden we're back
No
to square
action
one.
then, just to
Yeah.
keep it, no, I think that's great, because I thought that was a really impressive, presentation that they did,
Yeah.
so.
Cause they wanted to make
Very
sure that they
thorough.
had support, they had support from us, which I think they do.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
I'll just mention, if I may, just very briefly, that I've been in discussions with the climate smart communities people about doing some sort of commemoration for Earth Day, because the city last year did an Earth Day festival. It was actually quite large and I thought well attended. So that this year is not going to take place, that same kind of festival. But I was speaking to the group about the possibility. I wonder about linking Earth Day to opening up the trail. Like, are we thinking about, are the trails going to be open, or could we do some sort of like?
I thought they were talking about that, like they were gonna do it like the trailhead and then go into the trail and try to clean up some stuff, and so, yeah.
So should we do like a kickoff? The question I was wondering is if we should do like a kickoff.
Yep.
because
Yeah.
the trails, some of them were ready, so, yeah.
At some point soon. I think
Yeah.
we had talked about this, right? Yeah. About, linking, opening the trails up, or at least maybe initiating like public awareness of the trails.
Because I know we also had to talk about the signs, because the city was gonna make the signs for the trails.
Yeah.
I remember that was part of that. So, I don't know how close we are to really.
Like what's the time frame are we looking at?
I don't
So-
know. I know that one of the questions I had was the parking area they kind of identified by the existing trails. I don't know if that's on town right of way or on city property. If it's on town right of way, I think we need to talk with the town. I think we should talk with the town either way, just about if we're gonna formalize that, is that an appropriate access?
There's some work to be done too. There's some trails that they were proposing that hadn't been established yet,
Right.
so.
They're quite thick, right? Wasn't that with brush?
Yeah.
And there would have to be some maybe volunteer work done to clear off those paths. And so,
Especially from like the high school to like the little reservoir, that's not established at all.
Okay.
Yeah, they needed to get with the private, they need to get with this
Well,
high
that's
school,
the-
and they also need to get to some private land before we can connect the trails.
right.
We are evaluating our easement widths through there, because there was discussion about maybe following our easement widths, but it's been such a long time since the city maintained the right of way through there. We got some research to do.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we need more information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the research would mean looking into really where the easements are.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back, look at deeds,
Yeah.
see if anything was filed.
Yeah.
And I think, they were talking about more ready to go or already in use trails that someone has been maintaining. We don't know who is north of Upper Crossroad, like just south of the reservoir itself,
Yeah.
between Upper East Street and Wilbur Lake Road. So maybe that's the area that we were kind of talking about advertising and formalizing with some signage. But I think we need to talk with the town. I think we need to talk with some others internally, talk about our insurance, run that by our insurance agent, and maybe it's something that we need to just follow up with Mike and Bill on. I'm not sure as far as the Earth Day, if that's something that the Climate Smart Task Force wants to be involved in, 'cause that'll happen before our next meeting here at Click.
Right, that's the thing. Late April. So all these questions are going to be, you think, asked and answered by the city right now? Or us, the task force, or are the committee, Click here? Like, are these the questions that you're gonna be asking and answering?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can,
It's a long-winded way of me
yeah.
saying, are you gonna do this, or are we?
Yeah, we'll have to coordinate, I'll coordinate with Chris and with Mike, to if we can have a meeting with the town at some point and just discuss it with them, explain our goal and see what concerns they have. The parking area can be established officially, have some signs installed. Sounds like that's all that's really needed right now to sort of kick off and get some momentum. But also talk with our insurance agency if there's any concerns there with advertising trails that we're not establishing or maintaining in any
Right.
way,
Yeah.
so.
Because it could be a draw for people if they want to participate in the creation of these trails. I think
Yep.
that's what we had talked about, right,
Yep.
in our last meeting?
Yep.
But that's probably not something that could be done, all of this couldn't be kind of figured out by end of April, right? In time for Earth Day to kind of do that coordination.
We'll see. Yeah. It's gonna be tight.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot to be done there. It's just saying, okay, you can tell people they can park here and there are trails that someone has built.
Right.
That's simple enough.
We did put up 3 new signs in the fall indicating city properties and what uses are allowed. There were 3 parking spots, all of them surrounding Wilbur Lake, but we did do that. My office is extremely busy with the lead service laterals and all the phone calls we're taking, and now we got Mola Plaza construction starting, and we got sidewalk bids out, and it's getting into our busy season to just throw that out there.
Nonsense.
Okay.
Well,
So it sounds like, I'll bring it up to the climate smart people, but it sounds like maybe it's a little dodgy.
maybe it's a good thing to plan for next year.
Maybe,
Make
or
that
some
the big
other
kickoff.
later
Yeah,
thing,
or something else that comes up.
summer thing, yeah.
Okay. Alright, East Street and Bugby Road, Meadowbrook Lane traffic study.
Yeah.
So we were requested to obtain quote for performing a study at this intersection. We worked with the CNS companies, an engineering firm. They've done many, many studies for us, and they're actually helping us with the design of the traffic signal at the intersection of Graduate and East Street. The quote that they provided us was $8,900 for that intersection. I believe the quote was attached to the
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
agenda. Are there any questions related to the quote? Did you get a chance to look at it?
I did, yep.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions per se, other than just commenting, I know we talked about it, but the expense involved in just one of these, you know,
I mean, they vary depending on
I noticed that.
how
the big
much work
variation.
is
Yeah.
involved. I think we had some simple ones before that were a little less than this, but, the next one's even more expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, like, I know, I looked at this and I kind of went, whoo, and then I looked at the next one and I kind of like, my jaw fell.
I may just throw something out
So-
there about this East Street, this ongoing discussion that we've been having, which is that I'm not sure I'm not totally convinced that putting a stop sign there is gonna help with what the residents see as the problem, which is the massive speeding.
Yeah.
What they perceive as significant speeding up the hill. And I wonder if there's ways in which we could work on redesigning the street, not necessarily structurally, but adding cars, something that would, in the design of the street, incentivize going slow.
Are you thinking like the traffic calming techniques, like those kinds of things
Yeah,
that we
just
talked
if
about?
there's other ways besides a stop sign, or, we had talked about having parking on East Street, and could you extend that parking all the way up on both sides, that would then force people to go slow? Something
Yeah.
like that, it
urban style
Yeah.
construction there, you know, R2, everyone has driveways, you
Yeah.
rarely see, unless someone has a lot of visitors at a party or something,
Right.
cars parked out in the street. I think it's alternate side now, and that's kind of problematic, because you probably feel similar to River Street, to park there, you feel like you're out in the travel lane, so it's not a comfortable place to park your car unless you have to. So it's not well utilized, I don't know that it ever would be, because I don't know that there's demand up there.
Right.
So if you don't, if we were to determine you don't need parking there, then do you need a road that's that wide? Or do you need a narrower road that just accommodates travel lanes? Or do you change and have bike lanes? Or something like that instead of the parking. So that's something we can look at. I mean,
Yeah.
the project on East Street we're looking at, hopefully doing this year, or next year, depending on how
At least starting
construction
this
season
year.
comes out. We're not looking to reconstruct from the high school entrance up to Bugby, because we just do not have the funds for that. We're looking at a smaller section, but that portion we would just mill and pave. That buys us another decade before we have to come back there and rip everything out, which is eventually gonna need to be done. So, you know, narrowing the road, putting in new curbs and stuff isn't really something that I think is on the table right now, given our general situation.
Yeah.
But it's something that we should look at. Maybe there's ways we can, you know, as far as bike lanes and eliminating parking, you look at the width now, you could look at painting differently, you know. I don't know, that may or may not have some kind of an effect, but, as far as traffic calming and speeds, I don't know that just painting lines a little different would have a huge impact there, because it's a long stretch.
It's a long stretch.
And there's not a lot of,
Yeah.
you know, friction,
Nope.
there aren't buildings up close to the
Nope.
street, it's wide enough. There's not a lot of traffic there, where it's slowing you down because of the
Right.
volume, so I think you're gonna have those speeds.
Right, and nice. So, but there is a project, there is a plan to put in sidewalks, correct?
Further
To
down.
continue the
I was,
sidewalk
it was
up
like,
to Bugby?
Not
I
in this
think it was to
project.
the high school area, right?
Right, so down from number 90 east, which is between Mary and the high school driveway on
Yeah.
the east side, you would
Yeah.
extend that sidewalk
Yeah.
to a new crosswalk at Hazel
Yep.
and Woodside. The sidewalk on the west side of East Street that ends maybe halfway or a third of the way up
Yeah.
to Bugby could be extended, but is not in our scope of work for this
We have to
project.
go around.
We were looking at that as, you know, if we go and reconstruct that stretch of East Street, maybe that's the time to do it. And then what are you connecting to? Are you gonna bring that up Bugby
I know.
or just have it in there? So things to think about, for sure.
You know, the other thing with these traffic studies I wanna mention is, we've been looking to eliminate some of our signals, and I've been hoping for the last few years to be able to spend some of our engineering funds to do studies to like eliminate Rose Avenue light, or maybe eliminate one of the lights at, Walling Third, I think it is. You know, I get lots of complaints about that one, and I'd really like to do a study at those locations, so we can maybe save some money and eliminate the electrical cost, cause we pay electrical meter for those signals,
Yeah.
and they're getting old, and, you know, it'd be good to be able to eliminate one rather than replace it completely. So it comes down to prioritization, what's our priority, do we wanna spend the money on studies?
Well, I know that I had asked for this initially because residents have complained. You know, they're really concerned about what they see as speeding in that portion of East. And this was the stop sign was just a way to kind of get, you know, some sort of momentum, I think, around meeting what they see as a problem. So, but yeah, I mean, $9,000. I knew, you know, you had told us it was going to be that pricey, but you know.
Can you remind me, what is the total engineering budget, if you know?
30,000 for consultants. And that's for a wide array of things that occur during the year. It's,
'Cause I'm just looking at these two, and that would chew that up so quickly. And I'm sure that's, and, you know, it's March, I'm sure that's not gonna be the end of our requests. So, yeah.
for example,
Oh, and I had one more, go ahead.
I do set up a, small amount, like $5,000, I'll do a local engineer for miscellaneous things that might come up. I have to call an engineer for maybe the design of some kind of bracing or structural issue that I need to make sure that is designed correctly and built correctly, because we don't wanna fall to my attention, I use those funds for that as well.
So, the other thing that I wanted to say, you mentioned the couple of lights there on Main Street, and I talked with the Ward One residents at a recent meeting, and they're very interested, to hear, because I think there's a lot of frustration with those, close together ones, and, feeling that it could be more efficient there. So was part of the plan to use some of these funds to, do a study there instead, and do we have an estimate for that one yet, or not yet?
I had an estimate in that location,
Okay.
Greg, 2 or 3 years ago, and
Okay.
we ended up not moving forward with it.
That was what, Walling and Third, that one?
Yeah,
I
I
forget.
could look it up and see.
Okay. I
what
was
it
just
was.
curious,
Okay.
but it's still, either way, the ones that we have now would,
I think I grouped together a bunch of them. We did,
kind of like, where do the priorities fall?
Church and Chestnut, Easton Graduate, Rose Avenue, Walling, and Third. Was there another one? And we ended up only doing Church and Chestnut and Easton Graduate.
Okay.
I don't remember what the price was. It's pretty a while ago.
Okay, no, I was just curious, thanks.
So, we wanna do one of these or not? Spruce was even another
Yeah,
10 grand.
so, because it occurs to me, like, when I talk to people, we've heard lots of requests for stop signs, and people are like, let's just put up a stop sign. I don't think people realize that the scope of service involves things like obtaining crash data, and reviewing 5 years of crash data, collecting turn movement counts, speed data, site visit, reviewing more speed data. It goes on and on. That's just the beginning of the steps here. I don't think people understand what has to go into this in order to create a safe, intersection with the proper signage. And I think that's also, a bit of education for myself as well as the
Yeah.
public too. So this was very informative, at least.
Unfortunately, to protect the city, and our interests, before we make a signage change, we really need to have an engineering firm evaluate it, because if we just willy-nilly did anything, any sign we wanted without an evaluation, if there was a fatality, we'd be potentially liable, so it's very important that these studies take place.
Yeah, so, and my impression so far is that to the public, it's like a sign costs this much. You can just put up a sign for the cost of the metal. But there's way more that goes into the back end, before you can even get to
Absolutely.
purchasing the sign. And then I looked at the cost of the signs attached as well, so they're not cheap either, so, yeah.
I think Greg and I would love to rip down the stop sign or the light at Rose Avenue, but, we just
Yeah.
can't do
You
that
gotta go
without a
through those
study.
proper channels first,
And
okay.
we know that the concrete company's not there anymore, so the heavy traffic isn't there like it was, but,
Yeah, but we still have to follow those, even though, things have changed since that was established. Again, we still need to follow these proper channels in order to make, some kind of alteration to the existing plan.
And I think, we've talked about complete streets planning and, a thing called pedestrian safety action plan that you can look at, like a citywide plan. There is some funding that may or may not still be available. I think it's, there's one more year of funding. If it's not interrupted, this is a federal funding source. So it's something we could look into, or we could apply for this summer that would help us develop one of these. I think the value of that plan would help us prioritize, without going into the detail of these individual intersection studies where you do all the engineering analysis for, $10,000 to $20,000, but a little bit higher level, but kind of prioritize areas around the city. And that's looking at everything from pedestrian safety, bike safety, vehicular as well, but really focusing on the latter two. That would maybe guide our decision making. So something like Spruce Street, I look at that, we reconstructed Spruce Street in 2012 and 13. The rest of Chris and I, in our careers, we shouldn't be doing much more to that street other than milling and paving to, and pavement maintenance to extend the life of the road. As far as a cost,
Yeah.
Life cycle cost, maximizing that. So if we were to look at traffic study there and said, well, the only thing you can do to potentially reduce speeds through design would be changing curb bump outs, or installing things that require reconstructing something that's just recently reconstructed, is it the place you wanna spend money right now when, you know, you're kind of undoing something you already did?
So
If
that
you
was,
looked at the
can you tell me
whole-
what year that was, you said, like, it was?
2012 and 13, there was
Okay.
a two-phase project that reconstructed. So reconstruction, all the utilities and the full depth of pavement curves.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I mean, it's, you know,
Spruce Street, yeah.
okay. 'Cause I
And-
lived down, I lived on Linden Avenue,
Yeah.
previous to that, but, okay. Okay.
I'm not
So-
saying we should dismiss that concern from residents,
No,
wherever it is.
But are there other
doing
ways
it
that
a-
it can be addressed? And
Yeah.
can I just ask, do we know if is the difference in price so significant because it looks like the Spruce Street study area is larger? Is that why? Because it involves more
intersections.
okay, all right.
I think it's 4 intersections they were.
That's,
gonna
I
look
was looking and it's like a whole circled area and I was imagining that's why. I also, like, when I think about a study like this, okay? And I think about the traffic volume as compared to like the traffic volume on East Street and, you know, the other one that we were looking at, you know, and where funds are best invested, you know, how many, you know, how many cars in traffic incidences are we addressing by spending that amount of funds?
So I had asked for the speed study for the East Street because of it seems well traveled by students,
Mhm.
because it's leading up to the university. So I just thought, well, for residents, it would be good for them to just know that, you know, first that the city is responding, you know, in a way that is taking them seriously, and then also it is useful information to know,
Mhm.
like, is there really an issue in terms of these cars causing, you know, potential accidents or whatever. So, I don't know.
Do you
Oh,
want to
which is,
answer
yeah, I
this?
don't know.
Do you
I
want
don't-
to
I
answer
don't
this
need an
meeting,
answer
or can we
today.
give you an answer next meeting, we can think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, we had the whole year, really. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen in June or July, what might pop up. We have a major storm that, you know, affects our infrastructure and may need that money, but if we get to the end of the year and I didn't need the money, maybe we can
But figure
So
it out.
maybe
do
we,
that.
maybe
Yeah.
So-
wait on this and kind of
Yeah, why don't we wait,
see if it remains a priority?
I know for East Street
Yeah.
residents it is, and I'm sure for Spruce Street's too.
Yeah.
Both populations are really concerned,
Mhm.
it sounds like.
I really have nothing in the hopper for engineering wise, as far as like something that's recently popped up, so.
so why don't we put it on hold for 2 months and we'll revisit it,
Okay.
and see where we are.
Okay.
Cause I mean, still got some, even though we're supposed to be spring, we still got a lot of thawing that's going on from the winter we've had and not knowing what's coming our way,
Yes.
you know?
I think that sounds good. That way it's still there and we can revisit it and see, you know, where it lands.
Put that on the calendar reminder for 2 months from now, Bree,
Bring it back in May.
May,
Yeah.
see about where we're at, see how,
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
You're-
thank you.
brush and yard waste program.
I think we're just coming to let you guys know that we are planning ourselves at Casella. We are in talks with them right now about placing a container box at the Casella site, so people, residents can come and drop off their stuff at our container box without having to go through the gate. And then we'll go there periodically, once or twice a week, whatever it takes to empty the box, get weighed, and then dump, and then we'll have captured those tonnages.
You can still do that with whatever repair they gotta do down there.
I haven't got a final response from Tammy yet on that. She said she didn't see it as being a problem, she recalled having us, discussing it with us, but, she was waiting to hear from Casella whether there was gonna be a cost, if there would be an additional cost, so,
Okay.
Casella did not respond yet. That was only as of Thursday, I think I sent the email, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So we're in data collection right now.
Mhm. People are very interested in this. I don't know if other folks get comments, but this is one I get feedback on.
Pretty hot topic.
So,
brush and
yeah.
yard. You've mention you're taking it away from them, holy cow.
Oh, I've had
Going
several people,
off.
what do you mean we're taking that away? And I was like,
And then you
hold
start
on,
saying about
it's
maybe
okay.
charging or doing this, and then you get
Yeah,
the other round of
so
phone calls. And
That's one that I know is a hot button.
then you get them that they want it every other day, and or they want it at least like once a week, and
Yeah.
See, and it's a good lesson. I think people
Yep.
want to serve, they want services,
Absolutely.
you know? It's like,
And you know, some of the people that I've talked to worry about what will happen if they don't have access to service, you know, and maybe not so much for themselves, but their neighbors even, you know, and how
Yeah.
it will impact everybody. So,
Yep.
yes.
I wanna skip one. I wanna go to
what are we skipping here?
the one you guys wanted to add on.
Okay. So
We'll come
this
back
is-
up to the other one if we
Are we
have
talking
time.
about
It's not-
retaining
Actually,
wall?
I've got another one to add on.
Yeah, to that.
Surprise!
Chris told me no when I asked them what two they wanted to add.
No, that's good.
Oh,
Scott,
yes, okay.
you-
I got one.
Thank you.
So this is the Westcott lot retaining wall. We hired Herman Engineering to design replacement of the retaining wall. As you may or may not know, it's in very rough condition and requires work. So this is our proposed plan. One deviation from the existing retaining wall layout is we're relocating the steps. The steps currently now run along the edge of the
Yeah.
retaining wall
Like in the corner
to
there,
the
right?
platform in the corner. I had met with the landowner there at one point, and Don was with me, and Greg as well. And the landowner had complained about the deterioration of that concrete platform and the pillars because of salting, because we salt
Okay.
heavily there. So we decided to move the stairs away from that platform so as not to impact it anymore. We still have to salt, and, you know, that platform, we did an evaluation with the city attorney and, looked at past sales and easements of that property, and that deck, is the landowner's deck, that portion of it. So we will only be replacing that piece of concrete sidewalk that's indicated on the drawing, and then we will no longer, that'll no longer be ours, correct, Craig?
Right, it has never really been, they're just kind of together, so separating it out, it would be their responsibility, the platform that provides access to their building, and then the city steps would be separate and be our responsibility.
So we just wanted to present this difference in design to you guys to make sure you agreed with the change in design. Because we're pretty close, we're ready to go to bid on this. So as long as you concur, we'd like to move forward.
Is it ADA accessible?
No, it is not.
I was
The
gonna say, I only
don't
see
see it
stairs.
The ADA accessibility would be from South Main Street.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, that's probably the easiest.
And you go
right?
around,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then if you, the county building also has an elevator in it, so you can use the county,
Yes.
building
If they're open.
elevator
Alright.
to get to the various floors that they have. But as far as ADA accessibility on city property to and from the Westcott lot to Main Street,
Yeah,
you have to go around South Main
that's
Street.
right. So it's like a roundabout way, I guess.
Yeah,
So we're
Not
not-
direct, okay.
correct. There are handicap parking spots on Main Street in that vicinity.
Yeah,
But yeah, there really is no
yeah,
direct ADA accessibility.
right.
I'm good with the changes.
Yeah.
I'm
and
good with the
Oh, yeah.
changes. I think they look good.
Does this include the same kind of fencing? I know people have appreciated decorating that and things
Yeah,
like
we're
that,
gonna do,
so, yeah.
probably some kind of wrought iron,
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen the final details on it, but, wrought iron fencing, so people still, wanna make sure it's structurally sound too, and,
That's number one.
being weakened over the years from having the things put on it, we wanna make sure that it's structurally designed to be able to take that.
Got
Cause
it.
the wind blowing on it with that open lot,
Yeah,
believe it or not, it does affect
really.
structural
Even
integrity.
the wind, yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Wind and salt.
All right, good to know. But yeah,
So just to put a pin in that one, like, we'll bring that back to the finance when we get bid pricing. We're gonna have to set up a budget. We have it in our capital improvement plan as coming from the Streets and Sidewalks Reserve, but that'll be a conversation we bring to finance in about a month probably, whenever we get our bid result. The other one I wanted to bring up, because we had a concern or complaint in an email from the former mayor regarding bike lanes on the east end of Main Street. So I just checked with Chris. We have our pavement markings contractor who's planning to be back in town in April, right, Chris?
Yes.
We'll make that a priority, but the one thing I wanted to bring up with the committee and potentially with the council is, do we wanna repaint the bike lanes and sharrows as they were before, which is, there's a bike lane that was installed from the post office heading east all the way to the town line by Maytag. And then there's a bike lane from that town line back until you get to about Draper Street, and then it just ended, and there was intended to be sharrows from about Draper down to where the roundabout's gonna be. The reason for that was, at the time, there was a complaint from a hair salon owner, business owner on Main Street there in one of the houses right by just west of Draper, across from the hospital. That, you know, her business relies on her customers being able to park in the street there, and there wasn't an opportunity. We were told to coordinate with Fox Hospital and off-street parking around the corner. It just wasn't feasible for whatever reason, and the council decided to, let's just have sharrows instead of a bike lane. That's really not advisable, given the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic there. When you get to 30 miles an hour and above, you really don't wanna have sharrows. Bike lane is really the, you know, minimum you should be doing as far as bike infrastructure. Now, separated bikeway and all that is kind of out of the question without major construction. But if we're looking to repaint these, which we are, do we wanna reconsider and have a connected bike lane? The new roundabout, when that's completed, will have accommodations for bicycles. I mean, granted, our bike network doesn't exist right now, it's fragmented, there's very little, and this would still be fragmented, but it'd be a big stretch of a major street, and connecting that to our Lettuce Highway shared use path that goes to the south side would be the next step. Trying to build it out from there would make sense, but just something, do we wanna reconsider that? If so, obviously we wanna reach out to that business owner and have a conversation. But Chris, go ahead.
I just wanna mention, so my guys made a mistake last year and accidentally posted no parking on that side, and that particular business owner did reach out upset. So it's still an apparent issue for them, so if we do wanna do this, we will need to have another conversation about it.
I mean, I will say that this was discussed at the ward meeting, and I know Aiden was there, and there was general, like, support from, you know, the ward, you know, for marking the bike lanes. People thought that was a good idea, you know, and when I said, oh, you know, this idea that it could be, you know, this kind of pilot almost on more connectivity, you know, people seemed pretty excited about it.
I think it's great,
Yeah.
but I also think that the more bike lanes you put in, the more there's gonna be pushback, but that's just an
Yeah.
aside.
Well, I was wondering, let's not bring up this word. We got roasted. I think roast is the understatement of the year. I was just wondering, Elaine, would that be something, would you be able to talk to the business, maybe
Yeah.
with Chris and Greg, and
Absolutely.
try to,
Reassure.
you know,
Yep.
because I did find out, like, when we had an issue with one of our local businesses down in the Sixth Ward, I met with Chris and I think John at the time, and we met with the owner of the business and stuff, and we talked and stuff like that, and we came up to a really good compromise on everything. So we could move the parking spots away from in front of the business, back down a little ways, and, you know, we did some
Yeah.
stuff for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
no, I
think-
figured that might fall on me, and, but, you know, like I said, knowing that the neighborhood, you know,
Yeah.
is generally in support of it too, I think, you know, might be helpful as well.
I find out the communication up front
Yeah,
is,
absolutely.
you know, when they read it in the
Goes a
paper,
long
something like
way.
that, before you get to do something, it's,
Rather than just the no parking sign, for instance, that went up by accident, it sounds like, you know, that, you know, I agree, you know, having that conversation ahead
and
of time,
then
but yeah, we can
you
do
guys
that.
can bring back what you guys feel appropriate, and we can go from there. Is that okay, Greg?
Yeah, I think to Chris's point about the traffic signal analysis, maybe looking at the
The one by
bike
Wallen,
lane,
you're saying?
there's still
Yeah.
gonna be that section where there's still gonna be kind of an issue there we'll need to address, so it's another reason, I guess, to maybe prioritize that as far as our engineering budget goes.
I guess we'll jump back up. I thought maybe those two were gonna take forever, and I figured we'd get out of here at 6:30.
Actually, I have one question, and it's about bike lanes. I know we're gonna talk about it next month. Just one quick question. Is it quite expensive to develop, would you need to do a comprehensive, like a plan around bike lane creation? In other words, you have to do an engineering study for bike lanes as you would for all these other kinds of modifications of streets?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do high level citywide planning of a like network planning, like where do we think makes sense to focus on? And then you can kind of narrow down as you're designing those street improvements to actually figure out what's fit in that. But
And
yes,
that
I
would
do think.
require
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, that would require a engineering firm to give some sort of assessment.
Potentially, yeah, what we can't do in-house. Yeah, street redesigns, we typically do those in-house. When we get into a traffic signal or doing a warrant analysis for a four-way stop intersection, that's when we like to hire that out,
Okay. So you could do most of the bike lane development in-house?
for the most part.
Okay.
I think, but there's gonna be instances where, well, we really wanna have somebody who does this every day and, has the capacity to take it on, do that. It would kinda be a case by case basis.
Okay.
All right, pavement management plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were done. We have one more.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
skipped one.
Yeah,
I think.
sorry.
Yeah, I skipped
No,
one
sorry,
'cause it's like-
Julia.
Okay.
So, as you may recall, we hired a company to scan all our roads to evaluate and prioritize, the roadways. And, I just wanna show you the results of that study. So there's this thing called PCI, it's Pavement Condition Index. And basically, greens are really good and reds are really bad. And that's the map of the city there. And as you can see up here, my cursor is, that red line is East Street, which we are proposing to do work on. The average PCI throughout the city is about 70, which is really good. But we do need to continue planning repairs and maintenance on all of our roads. The reason this is really coming up is because Scott had mentioned to me a concern about Scrambling Ave, which is off River Street. Get over there. This here where my cursor is Scrambling Ave. You can see it has a very poor indication of 26 to 40 PCI. But there are worse ones, I mean, this one over here, the street here, what's the name of that one? Grace Place. That was a PCI of 20, which is in a serious category. Main Street's another very dark red. Not Main, but, that's probably right.
Yeah, I've seen there were a couple of this.
Yeah.
That Millie?
If you look, there is a large concentration of, let's get this to scan out, of poor, let's say, lower PCI roadways, in the sixth ward. River Street will be taken care of this year, we're gonna go all the way to the end, so that'll be a green road, that road reconstruction is completed.
A bunch of them are just kind of on those like outskirts.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Susquehanna Avenue is another one where my cursor is this year. That's something we're designing. Union Street is a little bit better, that's another one we're designing, but I believe, Ray, there was a lot of input on that roadway to work on that?
Yeah, that one we had complaints over the years. I mean, we had done a blanket patch when I first started in 2009. Maybe we've done it once since then, to kind of keep that going along. are deteriorated and missing, and there's been some sewer issues that we're trying to address. So there's been a few different things in that area, also some complaints about speeding at different times that have kind of drawn our focus there, and so that's on our radar as a project for next year. Right.
I'll just put in, because I am
Live up here?
I'm a resident of the Union. It looks not great, just visually, it's just a mess.
Well, so as bad as you.
I know,
feel
and I'm
it
thinking,
is,
what's a dark red
what-
look like?
You wanna see what a dark red looks like?
Yes, because I think Union Street looks like,
Actually, no, I'll use this one right here.
but the Wilbur Park also, it looks like there's a road pathway that's,
So we also did Google, like, you know, on Google Earth, they have these street views.
yeah.
We paid for that to be done with this, so we have current street views as of November of
Oh.
2024 of our own.
Yeah.
If you click on 360, it should pull up. Ah, lost it.
These were pretty, huh?
Okay.
I think you got it, I think you just gotta.
Oh, yeah.
So this,
Ooh.
is that,
Yeah.
Okay,
so that is
Oh, like
a serious street,
Yeah.
okay.
okay?
Yep.
It's a what?
A serious in the scale.
Yeah, serious need, right?
Right.
But, oh, wow.
Where is this?
This is Grace Place.
May have never been on that.
It's a dead end.
No, I don't think I ever have.
Is that the
That's
one
at the
behind
corner.
Stewart's?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, okay, that's,
Um,
it's like off the, yeah, okay.
so that's here.
Scott has to
Spent a lot
ask.
of time down that way.
Um, Scott had brought to me, so that was a, Sirius, which is 1125 PCI. Scott had brought to me Scrambley Ave, which is used a lot for access to the six-sport athletic field.
Six-Word Athletic Field, which
Yeah.
does a lot of the concerts and circuses and
Walks,
This is,
Walk.
walks and community events there, yeah.
so you can see how rough that roadway is.
somebody just asked if we could get some loving because it's beyond the patchable repairing, and I just happened to say I'd ask our DPW director. I made no promises we could do anything down there.
So
And I asked, out of curiosity, how much would it cost, was my follow.
So, using the numbers I have for River Street, that I just recently got, so it's state bid pricing, we're looking at about 60,000 just to Scrambley Ave, and that's a 4-inch mill and overlay, so it'd be 2.5 inches of binder, inch and a half top, and 4 inches mill. As a comparison, here is Union Street,
It's gonna look bad.
so not
Alright.
You know, I think it's
Just leave.
it's comparative. It is all in, yeah.
So
Yeah,
Cecilia,
see, if you look, if you go up the hill a bit,
Yeah.
closer to my house, it's really quite
bad.
patchy, yes.
So how far up
I
here?
drive on Union
How
sometimes
far
too.
up, how far up?
I'm up the hill just a little bit.
At the end?
Not at the end, by a little bit
Mary.
below Mary.
It also depends on where they took the photos.
Yeah. But we were commenting last night that the roads, and neighbors do say, see, this is up where I am.
So it's in a great area?
Yeah, right.
I where all those election signs are.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with the, they did there's something wrong with the oil mix, right, Greg? Something happened with the oil mix on this road, they did a,
Yeah, I mean, that bleeding that you see is, it's not supposed to happen.
Right.
So that impacts
See,
the
Mary looks,
quality of the road.
Mary Street looks really nice.
What's that?
Mary
Oh,
Street
yeah.
looks really nice, and the,
Yeah.
yeah.
so Union is considered a core, so I'm showing you a series of very
Right.
core. Fair.
And does the Wilbur Park include, is that the portion by the red, that's the, by the pool?
That's the
that you were
pool,
thinking
yes.
about?
Yep, so this is the roadway to the pool,
Yeah.
and then around the small pavilion, that, you know, that
Yeah.
Kiwanis.
Kiwanis is it.
And that section of East Street is
Services, Hazel Street is considered. Very good.
And this is considered good, because this was
Yes.
just redone, right? Yeah.
So that was a letter green, so it's good and excellent.
It should be Lower River Street that we just did. Well,
Yes.
it's Upper River Street that we just did.
That's perfect. River. I just thought it'd be good to show you the different, so this is excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just. that's
Yeah,
what we
you
just
can
did.
see it, it's, yeah, to the naked eye, it's
Yeah.
right, pretty clear.
I mean, like that first one, you know, you could barely even discern the edges of the roads.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and now we go all the way up to, this is
I just
clean
wanna
and
point
neat
out
and
on River
tidy.
Street, the way we did it, I know we took a lot of flack because we held it over for a winter before we went back and paved it.
Yeah.
That's why this winter
Yeah.
didn't do this,
Yeah,
is because we let it all settle down and then,
yeah.
Took
so,
time, took
I know
time.
people
You
get
think
the right
upset,
way.
but
So
there's a
you-
reason
you-
sometimes that you do it that way.
Yeah.
If it's possible, I've been doing this for over 2 decades now. If you can let the road sit through a freeze-thaw cycle, it's best to pave it the following year. You get such a much
Yeah.
better product out of it. It gives it time for the soil to settle and
Yeah, okay.
heat and whatever.
Because if you go down River Street, you're kinda going like this, but if you go down Market Street, you can kinda feel.
Well, I was
where
just
it's-
gonna say, that makes me think of like that drainage issue, you know, that we had over there, but okay. I know that there was more than just that going on.
So just to give you an idea, that little stretch of scrambling is 530 feet, I think is what I measured, and it's like 24 foot wide, if I recall correctly. That's about $60,000. If you look at all the red we have, and that's only a mill and overlay.
And that's the only milling over, but really, when you think of red, for the most part, you're thinking reconstruction, like the subbase as well. You know, to consider just doing it overlay is worth the money. But when you look at these, what do you think should be the priority? Just generally speaking. I wanna know your answer. Would it be, what color is the right priority?
Oh, well, definitely the
It
serious.
depends on the usage of the road.
I think so, I think it depends
Yeah.
on the, yeah. I would think, to be honest, East Street, just because it's such a high traffic.
Yeah.
So strictly from a pavement condition index and like pavement management perspective, the green roads are the highest priority. Because you wanna keep the good roads good,
Oh,
because a dollar spent on a green road, keeping it good, it's gonna cost $5 on a red road to bring it back up to that level. So given limited funding, you wanna say, all right, we have all these good roads, let's keep them that way to the extent we can. And extend the life of the road and then bring up the red and the yellow as we can. So it's just a different way of thinking about it. It doesn't mean you should ignore the red roads, just let them return to the earth, but we have a budget. So obviously you couldn't just go reconstruct all these road roads at once, that would cost a lot of money, so then you have to prioritize, well, which of these can you afford to bring up and when, and that's where I think you gotta consider other factors, not just the pavement conditions, but what's the criticality is, or,
Yeah,
is it volume, is it, you know, leading to a school, is it leading to a hospital or high
But I guess,
important area?
but if, you know, just going back, I'm not speaking for business now, it's just if somebody just says it's gonna be a little level, being that it goes down through, they might talk use more stuff. What about, because it's the usage of it, it's only high usage during certain events that they're doing, with the rest of the times, you know, you got, I wanna say it's 6
I was
houses.
gonna say it's a few properties, but it's mostly that, you know, driveway almost to the Sixth Ward field.
Could that be something where you could tar and stone and get 5 years more out of it or something like that? You know what I'm saying?
The condition was primarily that assessed that doing a micropave or a fiber mat on it is just not, it's not gonna do what needs to be done. It would probably likely get ripped out the first snow season, the condition of the road is in now. I mean, Springman has gotta be a mill overlay or a full reconstruction. Mill overlay, there was 10, 15.
Right, so while I said like red roads, you probably wanna reconstruct those, but it depends on your budget. If it's not a super high volume road, or like East Street, upper section of that, we said we're just gonna mill and overlay that because we need to buy ourselves
residents down there, it's not just city residents that go. I mean, you're getting people from, that follow these bands all over the place that come down. So it's just one of those things like, you know, if we're investing in the arts, I'm saying we're investing in the arts, and you get, you know. So, that's the reason I was bringing it up, was, you know, somebody asked for a little number, and it was just kind of one of those things, hey, can we just take a look at it? And, you know, maybe if we can't get it this year, is it something we're getting some money for next year, and maybe do, you know, as we're thinking about the direction of the city with the arts and stuff down there like that, I mean,
What is the shape of Main Street? Is it in pretty good shape?
Main
Speaking of
Street,
pretty-
Lower Green. So, that's some of the yellow, the area where the roundabout is yellow.
I can see that.
This part was 72,
they have to sell the roundabout, Chris, that's why.
and the other part there was 68, so it was only 2 points away from the other one.
Okay.
Not dramatic.
Chris, does the program have, I know it has like a budget kind of piece to it that we haven't really fully implemented yet, where it kind of takes the pricing that you use.
We're still being trained on this, new software. I still have about 2 more trainings to go. And just recently given us some budget numbers. This is ultimately will help us budget if we have money to maintain the road. That's,
And is a piece of that, to Scott's point, like the priority of the road?
we can
There's a different
change how
factor.
this evaluates and is prioritized. We can categorize a road as far as how often they're used, so we put on a scale of 1 through 5. You know, say Main Street's a 1, whereas Grace Place would be a 5.
Right.
You know, and then that can be factored into, you know,
That's
maintenance.
I think, what I'm getting at, I think that piece of it is where, like, we can go through and initially kind of apply those ratings to the different streets, but then maybe this committee, or I think probably this committee makes sense to talk about that, let's go through
Yeah.
and review those and see if we agree, because while the council shouldn't have any input on what the pavement condition is, because the analysis gives that to us, but how important a particular stretch of road is something that you guys can have
Yeah,
input
right,
on.
for
What are the uses, like the
Yeah.
6th Ward fields?
Yeah.
And then, you know, we can come up with sort of a consistent way of adding that in there, and then it'll spit out something that's a little bit more realistic, but it doesn't get to the point where it's, you know, council members, you know, vying for their ward versus another ward. There'll be kind of some systematic way of looking at things, and we can
Well, I'll always sit there and look for my ward, but.
She will. She's gonna point out all those red streets.
You ain't gonna take that away
But
from us,
I think that's
All
really
right.
interesting that this
But at least
program
that's something to
can
point
be
to, say,
used,
see, the numbers
you
agree
know,
with me.
In that way to,
If they do.
you know,
Takes
plug
all
in
the heart out
numbers.
of it.
Do
It
what?
takes all the heart and emotion out of it.
Yeah, and that's one thing, is that it's very objective,
Data,
you know, it's,
yeah.
you put data in and you get information back, you know, and then we can verify that information actually, you know,
So you take
you
this,
know, is the plan that we need, you know.
and then you
but-
overlay that with, you know, literally and figuratively with our pedestrian and bicycle comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
where do we wanna see improvements, and you look at utility issues that need to be addressed, and that's, together, all those things are gonna kind of prioritize where you make these bigger.
Can they do this with sidewalks, Chris?
So yes,
Ooh.
and I'm hoping that
Budget.
everyone likes this, because I would like to
Yeah.
put in my budget that we do sidewalks next.
Oh, that would be.
They do
really
sidewalks, they do signs.
Well, you could go ahead and put it in your budget, I just can't guarantee it won't get caught.
But the sidewalks and accessibility are definitely another area that we hear about a lot,
And there are
So that's really neat.
sidewalk items throughout the city. Call
I'm
them
sure.
I'll say items.
sure.
Issues?
Yeah. All right, that's great.
So, you know, we're gonna be coming back to you guys, well, not you guys, finance, for River Street reconstruction soon, because we just received bids for the sidewalk repairs. So there will be a budget put together. If I recall correctly, we're looking at about $550,000 for just the, remaining part of River Street from Parish Ave to the end, and that was about 5,280 feet. So that's where I'm getting $60,000 from, roughly, for 530 feet on scrambling. But I don't know, do we wanna proceed with scrambling because of the use it gets from?
It, question, I mean, and then I just followed up with how much do you think it would be just to, you know, I mean, I think we're too early in the budget year to sit there and say, let's try to find money that wasn't budgeted. And
Well, it's CHIPS funds, so I don't, you know,
I just didn't know, you know, like, would it be a better deal if we're doing up that way?
I would say it's a state rate, so that we're paying them based on, I forget if it's square footages for millings, tonnage for asphalt, you know, so it's not really gonna be a saving, other than it's never gonna be cheaper than today.
Me, I would vote for the award, I would sit there and say yes, but I mean, I'm trying to take emotion out of it, looking at stuff and, you know, I mean,
I'd suggest, I mean, come back at the next meeting, or as soon as we're ready with the, you know, when we have finished our training on it, we have the budget numbers kind of input in there, and then we can look at, you know, let's build a 5-year plan. We have a 5-year plan, but let's look at that, this as a, you know, in this context.
cause maybe this should be
Sure.
tacked on with some other roads down in the ward. You know, I don't know, I was just bringing it up to ask questions to, cause I was asked and I didn't have the answers.
The other thing I wanna mention is, the price we're gonna be paying for the mile of River Street is much less than what we paid for, or we're looking to pay for, the first part of River Street, because we're doing a lot more in-house stuff, whereas it was all contractor pricing, it was all prevailing wage rate. You know, the sidewalks, we're doing demolition ourselves, so there's a cost savings related to that. We have to do the sidewalks because they have to be ADA compliant in order for CHIPS to pay for the roadway repairs, so that's why sidewalks are part of that. So we have to put in ADA tiles, we have to make sure the slopes are correct,
You
Just
do
the
storm
crosswalks.
drains.
crosswalks, what's that?
You're also doing all the storm drains and.
And we're adding some storm drainage, yes, we're doing new catch basins, where the catch basins are needed, we're putting all new frame covers on, all city staff, so it's all already budgeted city salaries, we're not, you know, not prevailing wage rates. So there is a significant savings.
Who follows city code, by the way, Greg? They start at 7 o'clock, like the code says. I hear the excavators start up by my house.
And
In case you sleep through your alarm.
Run across the gas station, across the street, 7 a.m.
When we have an opportunity to use city staff and do these projects, part of them, 'cause we can't pay that, there is savings realized.
And you're still gotta add that one in right up by, between those two houses, the.
Yes. Catch basin, yep.
So if we touch base next month at the next meeting, we could look at the different categories that you mentioned, that would include something like usage.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Once we're able to get that, we'll put an
I
initial
think
draft
it's
together.
I think it may already be in here.
Yeah,
I don't remember how to get to it.
that's all right.
Finish your training, I
Yeah.
guess.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about scrambling again. I just, like I said, I don't wanna throw things out of works either. It's, you know, you asked me, yeah, let's get it done. Also, the other part of me is, we're still so early in the budget year that something comes up and something happens and, well, 60 grand don't sound like a lot of money. It's a lot of money, you know, the
Take your
budget
time.
that we're playing with.
Well, I mean, there are plans that Greg and I would like to spend the CHIPS funding on.
Yep.
I mean, we have a culvert out here that is not in good condition, we have a culvert from the YMCA that's not in good condition, and both of those projects are $1 million apiece.
Yep.
Good to
So,
know.
you know,
Oh, I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
it's all about prioritization
Yes.
and where we gotta focus. It's a very difficult juggle with a limited budget. that we
Yeah.
have.
Would
I
there be a
think-
program where you can plug all that in next?
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, we're
Yeah.
adding pieces to the puzzle, but I think continue to have these conversations in this committee about these different layers that go into this can be helpful in the budget process and
Yes.
just having a greater understanding and be able to prioritize things, so.
No, I like this tool, and hopefully you can do it with the sidewalks, cause, I mean, we get, I think that next to roads, is sitting there, our sidewalks are
Yeah.
the next biggest complaint.
It's probably I would say sidewalks and trees are my primary complaints that I get from residents.
Really?
Stop playing them,
Yep. What's that?
stop playing them. an inside joke. You weren't on the council yet when they planted a tree and it all went phew. Front page of paper.
Oh.
The first question I ever asked at a council meeting was, how many trees is the city planting this year? That was
Oh.
my very first question.
All right, well, thank you for that. That was
Welcome.
It's great.
money, looks like money well spent on
Absolutely.
that program.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything good for the order here?
No, I've done some research, like I mentioned, on the bike,
Oh, yeah.
e-bike
I
stuff
forgot.
specifically, but it sounds like it's gonna be future, so I can send that information out so everybody
Okay.
can look at it, there was some very concise, I looked at a couple different sources and this one was nice and concise. Peopleforbikes.org, and they had a whole collection of stuff, so I'll send that to everybody.